The Duke banished his bride on their wedding night. Years later, he rode through England to win her back. Hello readers, welcome to this channel. Please subscribe and leave a like for us, it means the world to us. Also, share this video with your loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you. As you do so, sit back and relax as we dive into this story. 1. Rain hammered against the windows of Blackmere Abbey as Isolde Fairborn stood in her wedding gown, white silk now seeming like a shroud. Candles guttered in the chapel's cold draught. Gabriel Armitage, Duke of Greymarch, held a sealed dossier in his trembling hands, his face carved from stone. Outside, a carriage waited, its horses stamping impatiently in the mud. Thunder cracked overhead as Gabriel's voice cut through the storm. "You will leave before midnight," he said, each word deliberate and final. Isolde's breath caught. They had been married mere hours. The guests had barely departed. Now her husband stood before her, eyes blazing with something between fury and betrayal, ordering her exile from his home. She wanted to protest, to demand explanation, but pride locked her jaw. Whatever poison had turned him against her so swiftly, she would not beg. Not now. Not ever. 2. Gabriel thrust papers toward her, his hand unsteady. "These came tonight," he said. "Evidence of your deception. A forged letter. A liaison that threatens the treaty I've sworn to protect." Isolde's eyes widened as she glimpsed the documents. Lies, all of them, but beautifully crafted. Someone had built an elaborate trap, and Gabriel had walked straight into it. She saw it clearly now, the careful timing, the damning details that would shake any man's faith. "I have been deceived," she asked quietly, her voice carrying across the chapel. "Or have you, Your Grace?" Gabriel's jaw tightened. He wanted to believe her. She could see the war raging behind his eyes. But something recent had wounded him deeply, left him raw and suspicious. He had overcorrected, choosing certainty over trust. The wrong certainty. 3. Isolde moved toward the chapel door, each step measured and deliberate. At the threshold, she paused and removed her wedding ring. The gold band caught candlelight as she placed it carefully on the stone step. "Find me when you are brave enough to ask why," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She clutched her mother's music box tighter, the small wooden treasure warm against her palm. Gabriel watched her go, his throat tight with words he could not speak. The carriage door slammed. Wheels churned through mud. Thunder swallowed the sound of her departure. Alone in the chapel, Gabriel stared at the abandoned ring. Then he noticed the dossier again, the wax seal bearing a crest he had not examined closely before, a raven piercing a laurel. 4. As rain battered the empty chapel, Gabriel's mind raced backward. The evidence had arrived too perfectly, too precisely timed. His steward had mentioned his younger brother's sudden departure earlier that evening, fleeing debts that Gabriel had only recently discovered. The same brother who had access to his study, his correspondence, his private affairs. The pieces assembled themselves with sickening clarity. His brother had not fled in shame. He had fled in fear of discovery, after delivering Gabriel the weapon that would destroy his marriage. But why? Who benefited from this chaos? Gabriel picked up the ring with shaking fingers, then locked it in a drawer he knew he would never open. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside Blackmere Abbey, a colder silence settled. Gabriel forced himself to feel nothing. It was easier than admitting what he had done. 5. 3 years passed like seasons through barren fields. Gabriel transformed into something harder, colder, more efficient. He modernized tenant farms with ruthless precision, settled creditors with mathematical detachment, and dismantled smuggling operations along his coastal estates. The work consumed him. Sleep became optional. His brother was presumed dead at sea, lost during a storm off Cornwall. No body was recovered. Gabriel told himself he felt nothing about that either. The estate prospered under his iron management. Tenants whispered that the Duke had turned to stone after his wedding night, though none knew the full story. Blackmere Abbey remained immaculate, every room perfect and empty. In his study, a locked drawer held a single gold ring that Gabriel never touched, but could not discard. Sometimes, late at night, he would stand before that drawer, his hand hovering over the key. 6. In the market town of Rosebridge, a woman known only as Mrs. Fairborn ran a modest reading room above an apothecary. Miners' families came for penny books and herbal remedies. Children learned letters at worn wooden tables. No one asked about her past. She wore simple gray dresses and kept her hair pinned severely back. The only ornament in her stark rooms was a small music box that sat by the till, never played, but always polished. Isolde had built this life from nothing, using the small inheritance her mother had left her. She taught girls to read when their fathers said education was wasted on daughters. She mixed tinctures for fevers and coughs, learning from an old healer who asked no questions. The work was hard and endless, but it was hers. Here, she was not a failed duchess or a discarded bride. She was simply someone who helped. 7. Isolde never spoke of Greymarch or the duke who had cast her out. When traveling merchants brought news from that distant county, she would busy herself with inventory, her face carefully blank. She had learned to lock away that night, to seal it in a chamber of her heart that she never opened. But sometimes in the dark hours before dawn, she would wake with her hand pressed to her chest, feeling the phantom weight of a ring she no longer wore. She had kept her vow. She had not returned. She had not begged. She had built something real and good from the ruins of that terrible night. If Gabriel Armitage wanted the truth, he would have to find it himself. She would not make it easy. She would not make it anything at all. 8. The mine accident came without warning. A support beam cracked in the northern shaft, trapping 12 men below ground. Isolde worked through the night, preparing poultices for burns and drafts for shock. When the men were finally brought up, one carried a crumpled paper he had found in a collapsed office tunnel. "Thought you might want this, Mrs. Fairborn," he said, pressing it into her hands. The promissory note was decades old, signed by someone named Lord Corwin Rathby. The signature bore a distinctive crest, a raven piercing a laurel. Isolde's hands began to shake. She knew that crest. She had seen it on the wax seal of the dossier that destroyed her marriage. The blackmailer who had ruined her had left traces in these very mines, exploiting workers through fraud that stretched back years. 9. Gabriel received the report in his study at dawn. Another embezzlement traced to his brother's creditors. Another thread leading to the same mysterious source. His investigator had found shipping manifests, forged contracts, and a pattern of systematic theft from coastal warehouses. Every document bore the same mark, a raven piercing a laurel. Gabriel spread the papers across his desk, his heart hammering. This was not just about his brother's debts. This was a network, carefully constructed, spanning years. And the architect had used Gabriel's wedding night to eliminate a threat. Isolde, her family. Something about the Fairborns had endangered this criminal enterprise. Gabriel stood abruptly, his chair scraping against stone. He had to find her, not to summon her like a lord calling a servant, but to go to her himself, to kneel, if necessary, to finally ask the question that had haunted 3 years of silence. Why? 10. Gabriel rode north with only one groom, leaving Blackmere Abbey in his steward's capable hands. His first stop was Foxwell, where an old healer remembered treating a young woman with educated speech and grieving eyes. She asked about herbs for sleeplessness, the healer recalled. Said she had far to go and needed to stay alert. I told her to find peace instead, but she just smiled sadly and paid double. In Oakmere, a printer admitted to publishing broadsides that had smeared the Fairborn family name. I was paid well to print lies, he confessed, ashamed. A gentleman with a raven signet ring provided the copy. I needed the money. I'm not proud. Each stop revealed fragments of Isolde's flight and evidence of the blackmailer's reach. Gabriel also heard stories of Isolde's kindness. A debt forgiven here, a child tutored there, medicine provided freely. 11. News traveled faster than horses. In Rosebridge, Isolde heard whispers that the Duke of Greymarch was making inquiries, following a trail that led toward her town. Her carefully built peace began to crumble. If Gabriel brought scandal to Rosebridge, her reading room would suffer. The families who trusted her would question her past. The girls she taught would lose their only chance at education because their fathers would forbid association with a woman touched by aristocratic disgrace. Isolde stared at the small bag she kept packed beneath her bed, the same bag she had carried from Blackmere Abbey 3 years ago. She could leave again, disappear into another town, another name, another quiet life. But the thought exhausted her. She was tired of running, tired of letting Gabriel Armitage's choices dictate her path. This time, she would stay and face whatever came. 12. Lord Corwin Rathby learned of Gabriel's investigation through paid informants at every major crossroad. The Duke was unraveling years of careful work, following threads that should have remained buried. Worse, he was riding toward the one person who might connect all the pieces, Isolde Fairborn. Rathby had spent decades building his network of fraud, using forged documents and strategic blackmail to control mines, warehouses, and shipping routes. Isolde's father had discovered the scheme shortly before his death, which was why Rathby had needed her silence through disgrace. The wedding night dossier had been his masterpiece. Now it was all at risk. Rathby summoned his most reliable men, former soldiers who asked no questions. Discourage the Duke, he ordered. Burn any records he finds. And if the Fairborn woman has kept papers, destroy those too. The men rode out at dawn, their purpose clear and their methods unrestrained. 13. At Stillwater Bridge, Gabriel found smoke rising from a burned cottage and townspeople standing in shocked clusters. He had missed Isolde by an hour, they said. Men with hard faces had come asking about Mrs. Fairborn, then set fire to a storage shed behind the cottage when they could not find what they sought. Gabriel and his groom searched the ruins. Most was destroyed, but beneath a collapsed beam, Gabriel found a metal strongbox, its lock melted, but its contents protected. Inside was a ledger filled with Isolde's careful handwriting. Loans to miners, funds for medicine, payments for school supplies. Every entry was signed with her maiden name, deliberately keeping his title separate from her charity. Gabriel's throat tightened. She had protected his reputation even as she built a new life. At the bottom of the box, tucked in a ribbon, was a small brass key engraved with flowers. 14. Gabriel held the key up to the light, recognition dawning. The music box. Isolde's mother's music box. This key belonged to it. She had hidden it here, separated from the box itself, suggesting the box contained something more than melody. He pocketed the key carefully and turned to his groom. "We ride for Rosebridge immediately," he said. "And we ride hard." As they galloped north, Gabriel made a vow aloud to the empty road. "I will earn the right to speak with her. I will not demand. I will not command. I will kneel if she requires it." The words felt strange in his mouth. For 3 years, he had ruled his estate with absolute authority, making decisions without consultation, trusting no one. Now he understood that power without trust was just another kind of prison. He had locked himself away as surely as he had locked away Isolde's ring. 15. Isolde was measuring feverfew into paper packets when a commotion began in Rosebridge's Market Square. A crowd was gathering, their voices rising in confusion and anger. She wiped her hands and stepped outside to find Lord Corwin Rathby standing on the steps of the town hall, his voice carrying across the cobblestones. "Good people of Rosebridge," he proclaimed, "I come with grave concerns about the woman you know as Mrs. Fairborn." Isolde's blood turned to ice. Rathby held papers aloft, claiming she sold dangerous pamphlets that encouraged rebellion, that her tinctures had poisoned children in other towns, that she was a fraud using charity as a cover for darker purposes. The accusations were absurd, but Rathby delivered them with such conviction that some townspeople began to murmur doubtfully. Isolde stepped forward, her chin high. "I am here," she called clearly. "Let us hear these charges properly, with evidence, not theater." 16. Before Rathby could respond, a horse clattered into the square. Gabriel Armitage dismounted in one fluid motion, his riding coat dusty from hard travel. The crowd parted instinctively for a duke. Gabriel's eyes found Isolde's across the gathered people. 3 years collapsed into a single, suspended moment. She looked different. Thinner, harder, her softness replaced by steel. But her eyes held the same clear intelligence he had been too blind to trust. "I request a public hearing," Gabriel announced, his voice carrying authority. "Lord Rathby has made accusations. Let us examine them properly, with all evidence presented, so this town may judge fairly." Isolde's expression remained carefully neutral, but inside, her heart hammered. Gabriel had come. After 3 years of silence, he had finally come. Not to summon her, but to stand beside her in daylight before witnesses. It was not forgiveness, but it was something. 17. The makeshift hearing convened in the town hall, with Rosebridge's mayor presiding. Gabriel presented the rescued ledger first, each page showing Isolde's charitable loans and careful accounting. Then he produced the printer's confession, explaining how the Fairborn family name had been systematically destroyed through paid lies. He showed shipping manifests proving Lord Rathby had embezzled from mining operations for decades. "My wife," Gabriel said, the word deliberate and clear, "was banished because her father discovered Lord Rathby's fraud. I was manipulated into exile her, played like a piece on a board by a master criminal." He turned to face Isolde directly. "I allowed pride and fear to make me cruel. I chose suspicion over trust. For that, I have no excuse and deserve no forgiveness." The hall fell silent. Isolde stood slowly, her face unreadable. "Truth is not atonement, Your Grace," she said quietly. "Facts prove innocence, but they do not rebuild what was broken." 18. Rathby tried to seize control of the narrative, claiming Gabriel was blinded by misplaced loyalty, that the documents were forged. But his voice grew shrill as Gabriel methodically dismantled each lie. The crowd shifted, their sympathies moving decisively toward Mrs. Fairborn, who had taught their children and healed their sick. Then Rathby played his final card. He produced a torch from beneath his coat and flung it toward the reading room entrance. "If you want proof of her crimes, it burns with her seditious papers," he shouted. The drywood caught instantly. Women screamed. Men ran for water buckets. Isolde bolted toward the reading room, desperate to save the books and records inside. Gabriel caught her arm. Together, he said. They worked side by side, passing buckets, pulling children's primers from the flames, their hands blistering from heat. Townspeople joined the chain, fighting the fire that threatened their shared treasure. 19. As smoke cleared, Isolde remembered the music box. She had brought it to the reading room that morning, some instinct warning her to keep it close. She found it on a high shelf, miraculously untouched. Gabriel appeared at her side, soot-streaked and breathing hard. "I found this at Stillwater Bridge," he said, producing the small brass key. Their fingers brushed as Isolde took it. She inserted the key into a nearly invisible slot beneath the music box's base and turned. A hidden compartment clicked open. Inside lay a folded letter. The paper yellowed, but preserved. Isolde unfolded it with shaking hands. It was her father's handwriting, detailing Rathby's fraud, naming witnesses, describing a network of corruption. This was the evidence Rathby had tried to destroy by destroying Isolde's reputation. "My father hid this before he died," Isolde whispered. He knew what Rathby would do to stop him. 20. With the original letter revealed, Lord Rathby's face drained of color. He backed toward the door, but townspeople blocked his exit. "Magistrates already sent for," someone called. "You'll not escape justice today." Rathby made a desperate lunge for freedom, shoving through the crowd and sprinting toward the horses. Gabriel started after him, but Isolde grabbed a vial from her apothecary kit and moved faster. She intercepted Rathby at the square's edge and smashed the vial at his feet. Pungent smoke erupted, and Rathby stumbled back, coughing and disoriented. It gave Gabriel time to disarm him without bloodshed, wrestling him to the ground as town constables arrived. The crowd erupted in cheers. They had witnessed Mrs. Fairborn's courage and the Duke's humility. But notably, no one called Isolde Duchess. They thanked Mrs. Fairborn, honoring the name she had built through service. Gabriel noticed and did not correct them. 21. As evening fell and order was restored, Gabriel approached Isolde outside the partially burned reading room. "Will you walk with me?" he asked. "At dawn tomorrow, away from crowds." Isolde studied his face, searching for manipulation or expectation. She found only exhaustion and genuine hope. "One walk," she agreed, to speak plainly. That night, Gabriel stayed at Rosebridge's modest inn while Isolde returned to her rooms above the apothecary. Neither slept well. Gabriel rehearsed words that would not come right. Isolde stared at the music box, her father's letter now locked safely away. She had her vindication. Her name was cleared. The blackmailer was caught. She could return to Blackmere Abbey as Duchess, reclaim her title, live in comfort. But the thought filled her with cold dread. That life had nearly destroyed her once. Why would she choose it again? Unless it could be different. Unless Gabriel had truly changed. 22. They met at dawn on a road outside Rosebridge, where wildflowers grew between cobblestones. Gabriel did not begin with apologies. Instead, he told her what he had done. Tenant farmers now held their own deeds, freed from predatory contracts Rathby had enforced. A permanent trust fund was established for the reading room's operation. A coastal warehouse had been transferred to a women-run cooperative. "These are complete," Gabriel said. "Not promises. Not contingent on your answer. They are atonement, inadequate as it is." Isolde listened silently, her arms crossed against the morning chill. "Why did you cast me out so quickly?" she finally asked. "What made you so ready to believe the worst?" Gabriel's jaw worked. "My brother had betrayed me weeks before. A friend I trusted with estate secrets sold information to creditors. I was drowning in mistrust, and when the dossier arrived, I convinced myself that swift action was protection. I was wrong." 23. "I was terrified," Gabriel continued, his voice dropping, "of yoking you to ruin. My brother's debts, the threats to the estate, enemies circling like wolves. I thought sending you away would spare you the destruction I believed was coming." He looked directly at her. "But I mistook control for protection. I decided your fate without asking what you wanted. I treated you like property to be managed, not a partner to be trusted." Isolde felt tears prick her eyes, but did not let them fall. "And now? What do you want now, Gabriel?" He pulled the gold ring from his pocket, the one she had left on the chapel step. "I want to ask, not command. If you wish to remain Mrs. Fairborn of Rosebridge, I will publish a notice dissolving our marriage by mutual consent. You will be free, with funds to secure your future." He held out the ring. "Or you could return, but only if we rebuild everything differently." 24. "How differently?" Isolde asked, her voice barely audible. Gabriel laid out terms that shocked her. She would keep the Rosebridge reading room operating under her own name. Summers at Blackmere Abbey only if she wished. Full access to estate finances and decisions. No locked drawers, no secrets, no unilateral choices. "And if I disagree with you?" she asked. "Then we talk until we find compromise or agree to disagree," Gabriel said. "I'm asking for partnership, Isolde. Real partnership, not the sham I forced on you before." A shout interrupted them. Lord Rathby had escaped the constables during transport, stealing a horse, and circling back toward Rosebridge. He appeared at the road's bend, wild-eyed and desperate, grabbing Isolde as she turned. "You have destroyed me," he snarled, a knife pressed to her side. "And I will take something precious from Greymarch in return." Isolde did not panic. Her hand found a small vial in her pocket, a decoy she carried for precisely this type of threat. 25. Isolde smashed the vial against Rathby's wrist. He howled and released her, clutching at his burning skin. The substance was harmless, but painful, meant to shock rather than harm. Gabriel moved with startling speed, disarming Rathby before the older man could recover. This time, the constables arrived with chains. As Rathby was dragged away, still cursing, Isolde turned to Gabriel. Townspeople had gathered again, witnessing her quick thinking and bravery. But Isolde's eyes were only on Gabriel. She reached out slowly and took the ring from his palm. "I place this on my own hand," she said clearly, sliding it onto her finger. "Not because you command it, but because I choose it." Gabriel's breath caught. "You are certain?" "I choose partnership," Isolde said. I choose honesty over pride. And I choose to believe people can change when they face their failures honestly. They rode toward Blackmere Abbey together, but they stopped first in Rosebridge to hang a new sign on the reading room. Fairborn Educational Trust, established in perpetuity. Inside, the music box played its gentle melody as children filed in for afternoon lessons. At Blackmere Abbey's chapel, Gabriel and Isolde stood before the same stone step where she had left her ring 3 years ago. No more banishments, Gabriel vowed. Only doors kept open, always. Isolde took his hands. And when we disagree, we face it together. The music box sat between them, its compartment now holding not just her father's letter, but a new one. Their vows, rewritten together, promising truth, trust, and partnership. He had once sent her into the night. Now every mile they rode back was chosen together. The chapel door remained open, letting in morning light. Neither moved to close it. They had both learned that love was not a fortress, but a shared journey, and the strongest foundation was built not on control, but on the courage to stay when staying was hardest. The ring caught sunlight on Isolde's hand as the music box closed on a steady, hopeful chord. The end. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this emotional journey. If this story touched your heart, we invite you to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Your support helps us continue creating more stories of love, redemption, and second chances that matter. At the end of this video, you'll see a suggestion for another of our romantic stories. Click and discover more beautiful tales of courage and connection. With all our gratitude, Duke's Story.